So hey everybody, my name is Rdub. Welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. Today we're going to be talking about the Curse of Osiris expansion, touch on the lore, implications of that lore, and the predictions for the expansion. And then we're going to go through the trailer real quick, point out things we noticed, things we liked, things like that. And you might be wondering why I'm saying what? So I have a special guest with me today, Itra, to help me discuss and comment on multiple views on the Osiris thing. So say hello.
Hey.
Hey guys, I'm here.
That's all I got.
Okay, so let's start with the basics of Osiris lore, who he is, and we'll quickly go through each of our own kind of perspectives, I guess, to start with. So for me, Osiris, first of all, he's a warlock, obviously. And he has both prowess in battle and, to me, a battle within himself to kind of understand the world around him. He wants to know why. Ooh, perfect public event. Shiny. But he wants to understand the world around him, understand why they're doing what they're doing, not just do what they're doing, essentially. To me, he's kind of like an anomaly, not necessarily misincarnated, but an anomaly in that he has a lot more of an independent kind of mind, so maybe he kept more of his original personality and stuff after being reincarnated. I think he's pretty awesome, personally. I think as a science-y kind of person, I enjoy his quest for knowledge, and I think he attracted attention for that reason, kind of deal. And I think he also was kind of trying to work with Shaxx to prepare Guardians for a threat he foresaw that everyone else didn't necessarily foresee, kind of like Crota and how the Speaker didn't listen to him about that. So that's me. I think he's a pretty cool warlock, mighty warrior, internal battles, and he's on a quest to discover all he can about the darkness and the source.
So the history of Destiny is incredibly long, and we're going to start basically where Osiris falls in. Is there was a big battle against what we presume is the Fallen at the Battle of Six Fronts.
Yes.
And this was 4 groups of Titans that protected the walls of the city, and that's where the Titan crest comes from. So Osiris and the Iron Lords and all these Titans fought in this fight, and he was this unbelievable warrior during this battle. So once it ended, the people of the city, other Guardians, they all rallied around him because he was so amazing. They rallied around him, and one of the people who rallied around him was Saint 14. And as you might remember from the Helm of Saint 14 in Destiny 1, that's his helmet, or her helmet, I think, actually. And
his. I think it's a guy.
It is his? Okay.
Yes.
His helmet. So along with Saint 14 petitioned the Speaker at the time to include Osiris as part of the Vanguard to be their warlock representative. And there was some pushback against him, specifically from Lysander of the Concordat, which was a faction at the time. However, the Speaker did end up appointing him, and the Speaker actually was very interested in Osiris and wanted to mold him into becoming the next Speaker. So during this time, there was a time of relative peace in the city. It was during this time that that the Iron Lords fought with the I'm messing that up. It was during this time that we had the fall of the Iron Lords to Siva, and the unity of 4 of the fallen houses that were remaining. And these 4 houses attacked the city again. So it was at this point that we enter Shaxx. Shaxx helped defend the city and became really a hero at that point. So following the defense of this city, Lysander was actually banished. He was banished, and he basically tried to attempt a coup at Bannerfall. Once this was quashed, there was a time of relative peace throughout the city. Now, this is when Osiris started really getting into his thirst for knowledge. He was really getting into this, and he realizes that the Hive, the Fallen, the Vex, the Cabal, all of these enemies that we've been facing aren't the real enemy. That there's something beyond this that's actually pulling the strings. So his theory here, and he is correct, the real enemy is the darkness. So what he did was he left the Vanguard and started to study what is known as Thanatonautics. And Thanatonautics actually started in the Crucible, when warlocks would die, and while they're dead, they would use that time to explore the world around them. And at the time of Osiris doing this, this was considered taboo. And because you're intentionally dying in order to glean knowledge. So he, through his study of Thanatonautics, he started chasing after the Ahamkara, the dragons, and looking for the Agents of Nine. And all of these things put him at odds with the Speaker. And it was at this point there was a conversation between the Speaker and Osiris, and we're not entirely sure what happened in that conversation, but the end result was that Osiris was banished from the city. And a lot of people who were followers of Osiris went with him. Now, we're not sure what happened to them, because all we know about really is Osiris, but at this point Osiris left the city in order to learn more about the darkness. So jumping back into Destiny 1, we learned that Osiris was the one that warned us about Oryx and Crota. Sorry, about Oryx. And he also came back to the Reef to do the Trials of Osiris. And the Trials of Osiris, obviously you guys know, were the Crucible matches, pretty much, similar to the Trials of Nine. And at the end of which, if you got flawless, you got to enter the Infinity Temple?
Lighthouse, yeah.
So Lighthouse, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is on Mercury, and it's interesting because we're going to come back to the Lighthouse when we talk about the trailer and everything.
Yeah. So, in Destiny 1, that was kind of a good segue into like the actual game itself. There are, of course, for those of you who don't know who've only played Destiny 2, there were Grimoire cards in Destiny 1, and that was how you found out about the lore. For the most part, other than exotic weapon descriptions, things like that, armor pieces and whatnot. So what you end up finding is there are 3 main Grimoire cards that relate almost directly, if not completely directly, to Osiris. And the first talks about Osiris and a lot of what Itra just mentioned about him, with the prophecies and attracting attention and things like that. But the other 2 are a little bit, I think, less obtained as well. One talks about the disciples of Osiris and how Shaxx, again, tried to prep people to fight. Again, like, you're fighting against Guardians, so what is he trying to prepare you for, kind of thing, is kind of one of the questions I find interesting. Like, for beings on par with or stronger than Guardians, potentially. That's one of my thoughts. And then there might be another motive for people like Osiris and the Awoken specifically for dwelling between light and dark. So how the Awoken had the area on the reef, yeah. So they have a very kind of compromised place, if you think about it, between light and dark, yet they manage to flourish almost. And that comes back to a lot of the lore about the battles and how Marasov destroyed the House of Wolves in that. But
and that was really essential.
Yeah.
For,
that was essential for the survival of the entire city. Oh yeah.
So thank you, Queen.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and if you need a lot more lore, my name is Bai.
Yeah.
That is definitely your YouTube channel.
For like straight up lore, like if you just want the lore, no opinions, like he's your guy. So the Grimoire card Vision 81 talks about a journey seeing darkness thrive, and then a guardian fighting back with more than their light, which they reference as pain. So for me, that makes it seem like there is something more to a guardian than just their light. There's some power in there that goes beyond the light, and that might be how Osiris managed to be so powerful. Like, he was an amazing warrior in the battles that he fought in, and still surviving all this time against the Vex. He's got to be pretty incredible to do that. So it makes me think that there might be some power that's greater than the light the Traveler gives us, that may not be fully explained, or may be a quality of the people resurrected as ghosts. By ghosts, sorry, not as ghosts. Yes, we get resurrected as ghosts.
We actually
Totally.
are ghosts. The Guardians are the little
Spoiler
things
alert.
that hold around.
Yeah. And then in that same Grimoire card, it references a her, so I don't know exactly what this refers to. It could just be the person's like friend or companion or lover or what have you, but it could also reference like a greater entity, something greater than the Traveler, like maybe a Hamkara or things like that. Who knows?
Yeah, I couldn't really glean anything from
Yeah, that's very cryptic. It's hard to tell. Hopefully some information comes from the expansion itself. Ooh, uppercuts. But the other card is Vision 47, and it basically is almost directly related to the Hive and how they operate to some degree. Because it talks about all ends coming from the same pit, which is kind of a more iconic line with relation to the Hive, because you think Hive, you think pits, where the Thrall come out of and all of that. And to me, so there are three parts to this kind of like reference. There's the shadow, which is first, the bones that are second, and then the third that cannot come alone. So this is very, very cryptic and could be a kind of like information dump on how the darkness and how the Hive operate specifically, which he did have some relation to before he moved strictly to the Vex. So like the shadow to me is like the wizards and stuff, like things that are much more like spiritual in nature. The bones are more the thrall, and they essentially carry, like they go and die, which means, to me it means the first can only like do things if the second fails. To me that's just the thrall going and like dying for the cause to that degree. So like this, it could also be like, I'm thinking it's interpreted as something about how the light and darkness kind of operate in like, not necessarily shadow, bones, and the third not coming alone with respect to the light, but as a more general concept past that, of how you have like something first, something second, and then the third that is a result of the two, and then you get a lot more power, like Crota, for example. So like, the card kind of encompasses Osiris's madness in a way, and his quest to find knowledge. So like all of this information dump is pretty much due to Osiris. And the riddle itself is incredibly cryptic, incredibly almost crazy, which kind of reflects how driven Osiris is to find the truth. And he did uncover it, it's an incredible truth, but it's like, there needs to be this almost obsessive nature to be able to do something like that. That's what I got from it at least.
Just a couple interesting, maybe
tidbits.
side points.
Yeah, go for it.
A little interesting. So you remember the just an interesting thought, and that hasn't been answered yet. So we know, well, according to the trailer, it's Mercury that's being added.
Yeah.
As a new planet. And in Destiny 1, the only time we went to Mercury was that Crucible map, or with Flawless in Trials.
Yes.
So what's interesting is there's one more time that we went to Mercury, and that was to what was it? That was to become a Sunbreaker as a Titan.
Yes, you went to
Right?
the Forge. Yes.
Yes, and you heard the voice of another Sunbreaker Titan.
The woman
who was actually,
like telling you.
Yeah, so she's a famous Sunbreaker according to the lore. And so the presumption is the Sunbreakers were in Mercury as well as Osiris. Now, there's an interesting, I don't want to say it's a Grimoire, it's not a Grimoire card, but it might be the lore for the in the lore tab for Sunbreakers in Destiny 2. It has something that says something to the effect of the Sunbreakers were either destroyed or they were, pushed out of Mercury. Yeah. By some unknown force.
Ooh, interesting.
Now this is interesting, yes, and this is interesting because since we're going to Mercury, possibly to find Osiris, I think maybe to find Osiris first. it'll be interesting that maybe they'll give a little more information about what actually happened to the Sunbreakers.
Yeah, because that would be really cool to know. Because, like, yeah, getting pushed out of Mercury, would it have been the Vex, or would it have been possibly Osiris telling them to get away?
Exactly, because we're not, and again, we're not sure what happened to the Guardians that followed Osiris when he was exiled. So, you know, is Osiris, I mean, his ultimate goal here is to help protect us from the darkness, but, you know, is it sort of a, maybe an unlawful good?
Yeah.
That he represents? Or is he, you know, fully altruistic in his motive?
Yeah. It's a really, like, he's probably one of the more interesting characters in Destiny lore. Absolutely. As far as personal, like, conviction, personal drive, personality even, just that. Exactly what you're saying is, like, what drives this guy? What is he trying to really accomplish? Is he trying to help us, or is he just trying to get this information he's so obsessed with?
Right.
Let's then jump from that right into kind of like the implications and predictions. First, let's talk about the expansion trailer itself. So, like, first impressions on it, things that were really cool to you, things like favorite kind of like information, tidbits, things that you enjoyed the most. So to start with, I first of all loved the look of the Titan armor. It looks fantastic. I just love how it looks personally. It looks beautiful. The Vexy kind of armor they showcased looks very, very fun. Very reminiscent of the Vault of Glass, which I'm glad they're taking inspiration from, because honestly that armor set was beautiful. I love that the Jade Rabbit looks like it's coming back, as well as Telesto, which seems really cool.
There was some speculation that Thorn might make a comeback.
I don't know if that's confirmed. I've heard about that.
It's not confirmed. I don't think so. I don't buy it. Also, there was thoughts that what was that?
Solar Cold Heart type thing?
No, it was. What was that gun in Destiny 1 where you shot at the expense of your health?
Oh, Touch of Malice.
A Touch of Malice. There was a thought that Touch of Malice would also make
so that's Taken related, which is interesting.
Right, and I don't buy it really, because this is a Vex, like a Vex themed story, and it doesn't really make sense. Especially because all that's very, you know, like Hy-Vee and Taken.
Yeah. To me, it would make more sense to have something that is more powerful at the cost of your light. So, like, draining your super, almost.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Something like that for the Vex. Also, Sunbreakers, but they look like they're, instead of filled with solar energy, they're filled with the Vex milk, the radiolaria.
Yeah.
So
this is actually interesting. Oh, sorry, continue.
So I'm just really curious to see what those all entail, what kind of lore they have in those pieces. So
absolutely. So to go along with that, a lot of some of the weapons that they showcased in the trailer, and also in some of the, I think Activision had a series of stills that they published. There's a couple of weapons that look like they would be sort of the raid weapons. Yeah. The future raid weapons, they look like they're Vex infused, and they have that same kind of white fluid running along the edges of them.
Oh yeah,
It looks really cool. And you know, I think they showcased what looks like the hand cannon, I want to say it's an auto rifle. And,
it looked like an auto, yeah.
Yeah. And there was one other type of weapon that they showcased. I'm not remembering what it was, but all three of them have a very similar, like, Vex milk casing around it. Not Vex milk casing, but tubes of Vex milk.
Kind of like, kind of like the Siva, except with, like, Vex.
Yeah.
That raises the question of, there is no new raid as far as I know. It's just new raid content.
Okay.
So like that's
Maybe
something
it's,
that I think people are a little bummed out about with respect to this expansion is if there is in fact no new raid, what is the new end game is my question. Like if it's
Right.
new raid content, we already have like a prestige mode for this raid. We don't need
Right.
more this raid. We need more other content. So that's the thing that I'm disappointed about if it comes out to be true. Like I'll be very disappointed. I wouldn't mind an endless or labyrinth mode. I actually had a thought when I was talking to another one of my friends, Rain, about it, where you would have procedurally generated labyrinth type of deal. Like every week, you get a new role on it. Like it's not necessarily the same for every guardian, or like set of guardians. Like it's different whenever you go into it again with a group of 3 or whatever, a group of 6. You can even run it with a group of 6. I think it'd be fun to do an encounter like that with a group of 6.
Oh yeah.
So what you'd have is these encounters, which some would have it be like a mini boss you just have to kill. Some would have it be objective based, where you have to solve a puzzle. Some of them would literally be like jumping puzzles to get through with certain enemies, high value targets, whatnot. Like there's a lot of things they can do, and recycle to make it like replayable. But then have it so that it has like an underlying theme. Like for example, you're running around in some caves, then you come out into this valley. This massive valley, and there's this giant Vex construct in the middle of it that's deactivated. You look around, you find out like there are places for you to put these arc charges or solar charges or whatever, an energy thing to power them. And then you have to go around this valley to like the different corners, the little nooks and crannies, to the top of one of the mountains to get all of these charges and bring them back so that you can defeat this guy so he doesn't like ruin the timeline later on.
That would be interesting.
So like
If
that's
you
the kind of
encountered
idea that was
before.
coming out of my brain hole yesterday.
So actually, this thing about the timeline is interesting because one of the things that Ikora mentions in the trailer is that there's machines from the past and the future.
Yeah.
And that is really intriguing. You know, are we going to be jumping through timelines? So actually, to go with that, there is a scene where in the trailer they show you the lighthouse on Mercury, and then they show you the lighthouse destroyed. And that I found also very interesting.
Oh yeah. That's huge. To me, I don't know like what kind of Vex we're gonna be facing. It'd be cool to see like the past, present, and future Vex interface with each other in different ways. So if you're fighting past and present Vex, there are like certain things that come out, or present and future Vex, or past and future Vex, like they kind of interact in a way that makes like different abilities or like different like almost modifiers to it to some degree.
Yeah. And I think, if I recall correctly, we encountered past Vex when we did going back through the Black Garden.
Yes, we encountered past Vex, and we've also encountered future-ish Vex. The ones in the Hydra strike with it having like the 2 shields, I think it was the 3 shield. No, it was the 3 shielded one.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
We could like run past all those minotaurs that get taken if you're not careful.
Yes.
So that strike, I think, had future Vex because they looked high-techy. They looked like the new chassis from these guys we're looking at right here. The normal, typical Vex you find around Nessus and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Osiris as the character in the trailer. His look, how he does things, like what can we kind of get from that? So
First off, he
yeah.
looks badass.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Just start there.
Oh yeah, he just looks like he means biznizzle no matter where he goes. He is not taking no shit from no Vex. I think he looks almost like a hybrid of the Hunter and the Warlock. Cause his armor, like first of all, his cloak is all tattered. His stuff is very worn, very like cloth based. It's not so much the like esteemed fabrics the Warlocks typically look like they're wearing. It looks a lot more like the Hunter kind of field weave, being flexible, easy to move around in, and like made for that kind of like skirmishing combat he's shown to do in the trailer.
Exactly.
I wonder if his pulse rifle that he used in that is specific to him, whether it'll have special lore related to him. That would be kind of cool. Or sorry, scout rifle. It looked like a scout rifle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of.
So that would be really interesting to see. I think he moves a lot more like a hunter, specifically like a Night Stalker, in the way he runs around and used his super from like up high to kind of decimate stuff. But that brings me to his super, which to me is like, he was like, I want the Night Stalker in their like kind of mobility, but I want to be able to put out some mad damage. So I want to be able to like fly around, jump around, and then just rain down some death on these Vex. So I think he almost would have molded his light, and maybe what's inside him more than his light, speaking back to the pain referenced in that one Grimoire card. Maybe he molded himself and that turned into like the Dawnblade. Maybe he's the first Dawnblade, because it looks like he has a physical blade he channels his solar light into in that trailer.
So that draws an interesting question, because I was talking to you about this earlier, about just why we use swords in Destiny. And it's an interesting topic, because, you know, why use swords when you have a gun? But it sort of, the way I've learned about it is basically that when our swords run out of ammo, that you can still use them, they just don't do a lot of damage. And really that's because they're no longer infused with our light. And it's really our light that's doing the damage, not, you know, the sword itself. So, and this all actually came from the Hive, and when we learned how to use the Sword of Crota, and then through learning how to use the Sword of Crota, and then defeating Oryx and getting all those Hadium flakes and infusing what was it, Oryx's
like essence or
gem?
the sword gem that we give to Eris.
Exactly. Doing all of that basically taught us how to forge forge a sword and infuse it with our light.
Yes.
And I would argue that the next stepping stone from that is to use our light purely as
a weapon.
The weapon itself. And that is what the Dawnblade is now you're no longer using a physical sword to channel your light. You are powerful enough to turn your light into a sword.
Oh, that's actually really, really cool. I think, if anything, that's how it goes. Yeah, and like Osiris having the sword could lead us to be like, this is how he kind of invented it, in that he channeled it into the sword and then discovered, hey, I can do this without the need for this physical thing.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of Osiris, is we know that he spent his entire life learning about the light, learning about the darkness. So it begs the conclusion that he probably figured all this out on his own. No problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially with all his research about the Vex.
Right. It makes sense canonically that he would know how to do all this.
Yes.
Even though, you know, he wasn't part of our experience with the light.
Exactly. Huh. That brings me to him being in the trailer. His face is covered, so you don't get a lot of expression there, but it's also interesting that he doesn't have a helmet, which is cool. But the thing I found interesting about his expression was it looked very, like, determined and, like, sane. It's nothing like the madness a few of the Guardians of the Tower or whatever speak of, him being, like, mad in his thirst for knowledge. It looks like he's, like, grimly determined to find knowledge. Not that he's obsessed with it, it's just that he's grimly determined to get the answers he is asking questions about, essentially. So I think his personality is going to be one more like a calm, more intense, like Lord Shaxx kind of deal, where strong figurehead, strong symbol, strong warrior, but that knowledge is his base instead of like battle, where Lord Shaxx is like crucible focus, like the battle is what defines us kind of thing. And
that partly goes towards the personality of a warlock themselves. They're very much information driven.
Oh yeah.
And also, the madness, I think, my opinion on the madness is really just the perception of him engaging in fanatonautics at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was considered such a taboo. Why would you
see.
do something like that,
So maybe it
but
was
now
born.
it's a lot more commonplace.
Yeah. So maybe it was born out of just the time that he was in.
Exactly. I feel like that's what they mean when they talk about the madness of Osiris. Isn't necessarily that he's crazy, but to the times he was crazy.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense too.
Also
now,
an interesting little tidbit, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. I was gonna say, do you have any more?
Yeah. Just one extra thing about fanatonautics. The weapon Hardlight.
Yeah, I'm wearing it right now.
Yeah, that came out of fanatonautics, according to Destiny lore.
Oh, really? How so? Like, did they discover it while they were dead?
Yeah, so they used the knowledge while dead of crafting a weapon that would be incredibly powerful. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. And it's very science-y too, so it leads to kind of my connection between Fanatonautics and like Clovis Bray in the sense of like the scientific advancement of humanity kind of deal.
Yeah.
Where it's the marriage of the understanding of like almost the spiritual aspect combined with the technological aspect, which is how you get a hard light that has bouncy bullets.
Exactly.
There's speculation they'll be adding a 4th class to Destiny at some point.
Oh.
A few people are talking about it, but I'm like, I don't think that's realistic to assume that'll be coming out in this expansion or the next, really. I don't see it coming out this year, if they even decide to do it.
Right.
But I think Osiris kind of is the spearhead in breaking the mold of we have to be these certain things set out for us by the Traveler or whatever, or like by whatever we have, like our light channeled as void energy or whatnot. And you do see Guardians, but normally it's the more powerful Guardians that are able to change their subclass, essentially, because Zavala was a striker, became a defender. Ikora's a void walker. You see Osiris change to become a Dawnblade from Sunsinger, so he's like the pioneer of like becoming new. There were the Sunbreakers, of course, that forged their fire. So things like that, just kind of almost breaking the mold of what we think is typical of a Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
What we think is the standard of a Guardian, fight for the city, do all this stuff, when really Osiris kind of goes against all of that in a way. But like, it's supplementary to what the city is about, because they're for protecting. And Osiris is all about seeking the knowledge so that they can permanently protect everyone.
Absolutely. I think in principle Osiris is a friend of the city, a friend of humanity. We might disagree with his methods, but at the end of the day, he did warn us about some of the greatest threats that were going to befall the city. I don't think we can discount that at all.
Yeah. Okay. Final really part of this is let's go for predictions for the expansion. What do you think we're gonna see? Just take some guesses. What do you think are some of the main features, some new features, some updated features, things like that? What do you think we're gonna see?
Well, that's a tough one.
Exactly.
Definitely so one thing that I'm hoping for that would be really interesting is this, it's the Infinity Forest is what I was thinking about.
Okay.
The Infinity Forest in Mercury that's been confirmed as it's going to be an explorable space.
Yeah.
I really want to see the way that we're able to transport ourselves between the different pillars and areas.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't look like there's any straightforward way to walk between any of that, right?
Yeah, the trailer's like, what bridge?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Are we going to be teleported? Is it going to be sort of like we get bounced over there, like those little bumpers in Nessus?
Yeah.
or is something else? Who knows? Is it going to be that? Are we going to jump forward and backwards through time during our regular exploring of Mercury?
Oh, that's what I was about to suggest.
Yeah, is there some sections that are in the past, some sections that are in the future? Is there a risk of us getting caught in a Vex time loop like Cade 6 was stuck in?
Yeah, ooh, I like that. I was thinking maybe like different areas are accessible based on what timeline you're in, and you have to do little events to kind of switch timelines. Find the Vex guarding a gate that are from the timeline you need to be in, type of thing, and then get there. That'd be kind of cool for like replayability too, because then you can get rewarded for jumping timelines, and you get rewarded even more because you're in a new timeline where you want to be, and you can get to a new area you've never seen.
I'm just thinking of Ocarina of Time all of a sudden.
Inspiration from classics like that is always a good thing, man.
Absolutely. So the other thing that I think is upcoming is either another Strike or possibly a Crucible map in the Arcology.
Ooh, interesting.
I think that might be on the horizon. I saw a very interesting gameplay video of Crucible in the Arcology. And I don't remember what the context for that was. I don't think there was any context.
Okay.
But that looked really cool. And that'd be very interesting. Some new Crucible maps, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Always a good idea.
Oh yeah. Okay, so from just a pure fanboy perspective, I want to see, first of all, I want to see all the new weapons and armor. I think there's going to be some really heavily time-based inspired armor, so like some past Vex inspired armor, some future Vex inspired armor. I'm really hoping to see stuff like that, or at least skins or shaders that kind of make them look as such. That'd be really cool. I also think that it would be really interesting, probable that their raid update will involve the Vex either getting involved in the Castellum or being like, hey, we actually made these constructs for the Cabal, like Callus, the robots. So I'd be like, maybe that has something to do with it. I have no idea. So that would be interesting. From a mechanics, a gameplay perspective, I want to see, of course, new strikes, new missions, things like that are given for me. Like I'm expecting those. I want to see better rewards for strikes in Crucible. Just from an expansion point of view, there need to be better rewards. Token-wise, because the token system to me is whatever, it's fine. I'd like to see a huge penalty for being able to buy the gun you want. So like if you have 200 Crucible tokens, you should be able to get one gun that you specifically want. Better Devils. But that's just my salty side showing. Other than that, I want some kind of PvE mode that has a lot more replayability than the raid. Prison of Elders style, but less repetitive would be great. Like where you have, like I was mentioning, like a more open exploratory setting where you're like on Mercury, for example, and you're just in a labyrinth of these encounters. There are Fallen that have been trapped by the Vex that they use. There's Vex, of course, like stuff like that to kind of keep it so that you have to be on your toes. You and your friends can get separated in different areas. You could meet other Guardians in the middle of it if they have a common room. Things like that I think would be a really good design space to explore. And then you could explore modifiers and changes in a more sandboxy environment. So if it's like, oh, we found out it was broken this 1 week because of this modifier, that modifier is only in that one encounter in that 1 week of Labyrinth or whatever it's called, whatever they decide to call it. So that would be interesting.
Yeah. Because this whole idea of rotating like random maps for something like the Labyrinth is something that I know Blizzard has done very well in the past.
Oh yeah.
Which is where my question came from.
Yeah. No, that'd be
also
makes sense.
Yeah. Quick point about the Vex, because this is sort of interesting. Apparently, you know the fluids.
Yes, the radiolayer fluid. Yeah.
The radiolayer, that is the Vex.
Yes.
And so it's the other thing that comes up here is like, you know, the weapons, the new weapons that have been shown at least in the trailer, if they have this fluid in it, what does that mean that we have
Vex.
live Vex in our weapon?
Oh, whoa. That leads me to think about Failsafe and the captain and how that harpy had the memories of the captain and how that harpy kind of actually like was helping us try to find stuff. So maybe like us, the Vex are more than just the darkness and we're more than just the light. Maybe there's something else there. And maybe we're all being like controlled by the power that we're aligned to some degree.
Right. And that actually, a nice point about that is at the end of Destiny, remember when the Traveler let out its pulse of light throughout the universe, and it awoken the ships, which we were assuming are the darkness or the agents of the darkness, or something along that line.
Yeah.
One of the theories here is, you know, you can never have light without darkness or darkness without the light, and when there's an imbalance, the other side will try to correct it. So we've been fighting so hard against the darkness because we were losing the fight as the agents of the light. That's why we've been productive since the end of the collapse. Now we're trying to come into our own to you know, promote the light throughout the universe. So now we should expect a response.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from on that one for sure. Okay, that's incredible, and I think we'll get some answers to some of those questions when the expansion comes out. For those that don't know, it will be launching on December 5th on every platform, I believe. They're not going to stagger the release for PC, which is a really great thing for the PC gamers. Yeah, because then they're not super sad. But yeah, so look forward to that. Look forward to content coming out, of course, from yours truly, streaming all that good stuff as per usual. We'll hopefully do an updated lore video if you guys like this one as well, to figure out what we've discovered and what's kind of still up for speculation after this expansion comes out. So with that, my name has been Rdub with my special guest Itra. I hope you guys enjoyed this little discussion we had about Osiris, the lore, the expansion, and what we're hoping to see. And I'll see you guys all next time. Thank you so much for watching again, and